The Army was getting pretty desperate for soldiers. They were looking at a possibility of dropping the requirement for a high school diploma or GED. Now, they did kind of quickly retract that idea, but we're going to talk about that. I'm Christopher Chaos, and let's talk about some of these changes the Army was going to implement. What's up, my friends? Welcome to a brand new video. We're going to kind of start off with talking about this really kind of crazy policy that the Army was going to basically allow soldiers or allow people to join and become soldiers without a high school diploma and without a GED. But there were some restrictions to that. They did actually nix that, and we'll talk about that as well. But this was on the table, and this was released that it was available, and then kind of quickly retracted that. So if you're not aware, currently the requirement to join the Army, 17, you can kind of join, you can do like the split ops thing, but otherwise outside of that, you have to be 18 years old, high school diploma or a GED, you got to take the ASVAB, all that kind of stuff, pass all the medical and physicals, all that kind of stuff, and then you can join. Well, the Army is short on numbers, right? They really need people to join. They're short for whatever reason. They're not necessarily getting desperate because some massive war is coming about, at least not that I'm aware of. I mean, there could be, and they're just not telling us, who knows? But, I know there's a lot of, people out there that think that that's why. It's just not really the case that I've seen. I've seen more, it's just that numbers are a lot lower than they've been in the past. So people are not as interested in joining the Army or the military, for that matter, because of how competitive the job market is nowadays. There are great jobs out there that with maybe a high school diploma, maybe a college education, whatever, can pay pretty well compared to putting your life on the line in the military. So some people rather go that way rather than joining the military. So numbers are, I don't know if at a record low, but they're low, right? So they're low for recruiting, so they've been loosening up some different areas to try to get those numbers back onto par. One of the things they already did was the tattoo policy, which I'm fine with that. I think they could have relaxed even a little bit more, but that does kind of loosen up a little bit to allow otherwise people that would have been, eliminated from able to join the Army because they had a little star tattoo on their hand, no longer eliminated. And other small tattoos, maybe on the back of the neck, behind the ear, whatever kind of a thing, in certain areas that weren't that big of a deal to now be able to join the Army. But going way above and beyond, they were going to get rid of the whole, you have to have a high school diploma or a GED to join the Army. Now, some of the restrictions with that was that you still had to be 18, no split ops option for joining at 17 like you do normally. So you had to be 18, and you did still have to take the ASVAB, but the requirement was to at least score a 50 on the ASVAB. The requirement to even qualify for the military is a 31, but for this case, you had to at least score a 50 to be eligible if you didn't have a diploma or a GED. Now, there was still a way that people could come into the Army without GED or high school diploma. It's a waiver process, but that was a lot more restrictive. That one, you had very, very few amounts of waivers they were granting for that, so it was much harder to be able to come in with that kind of scenario of not having GED or high school diploma. Now, the other kind of catch to it was that you had to ship off before the end of the fiscal year. So before 1 October 2022, you had to ship off. Now, there could be some individuals that simply maybe are really smart, but they're bored with high school, so they didn't finish and get their diploma. They didn't feel like going to get a GED kind of a thing, and they're maybe very knowledgeable, and they would have been just fine being able to join the military. But there are some people that I feel like, maybe it might have been attracting the wrong people. They would have been attracting maybe some people that couldn't pass high school, which you probably don't want in the military, or people that weren't dedicated to something. They weren't interested in seeing something through. So they were like, I don't really want to be in high school. So what do you think they're going to probably do when they go to basic training or AIT? You think they're really going to stick with it? Maybe, but they could end up doing the same thing they did with high school and say, screw this, and they try to quit. It's a tough thing, but there is the potential that some of those people that are probably just not very bright would end up getting through the cracks and being able to use that to get into the military. And now we just have, horrible soldiers that are not very well educated, that failed high school or whatever kind of a thing. I don't know. So I definitely think it was a bad move. I don't think it's the right thing. I think you do need to stick with having at least GED or high school diploma. And if you don't have those things, then maybe, requiring them to do really well on the ASVAB to prove that they're smart enough to still join. And maybe for whatever, life reasons they couldn't make it through high school or their GED, but they can prove that they're pretty smart, then maybe we can work around it that way. Well, but anyways, it doesn't really matter too much anyways, because I think it was a week after the Army kind of announced that they were going to do this, they retracted it and said, never mind, we're not going to do that now. What made them change their mind? I don't really know for sure. I've seen some stuff where they saw a lot of negative backlash about it, which obviously, you're going to kind of get for that. I don't know if it's that or other things. Maybe other higher ups, saw that and were like, what are you guys doing? No, you can't do that. So I don't know what the reason was for retracting it, but they did. There was something I saw where they said they could still revisit that later on, but for now, it's off the table. It's no longer an option now. So we're back to the way it was before anyways, of you must have a high school diploma or GED. If not, then they do have those waivers for it, but very, 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 very small percentage of people are able to join with that kind of option. I think it's a good idea to not have that as an option. Like I was saying before, I think I even had someone message me when they heard about this and they were like, well, do you think they'll give me a waiver for if I can't get a 50 on the ASVAB? And it's like, that's the key reason right there, right? You couldn't pass high school, you couldn't get a GED, and you don't think you can get a 50 on the ASVAB, you're probably not qualified to be in the Army. You shouldn't be in the military, probably. I don't think we can just completely ignore standards and reduce them so low to get the numbers up. I think you still got to have a certain threshold. You got to still have a certain, kind of standard to allow for good soldiers to be joining. But, that's my thoughts. I'm sure there might be some people watching this video that would rather them not have the GED or high school diploma option for whatever reason that they may have. Maybe there's some good reasons out there. I don't really know. But, offhand, I think it's best to have the GED and diploma be a requirement and be able to pass the ASVAB to make sure that we're getting people that are skilled enough to understand things. I mean, you're in a lot of jobs anyways, in some jobs, I guess, you're in the hands of, other people where lives are on the line in a combat scenario type of thing. And someone that can't make good decisions, who is not intelligent enough to be able to act in a certain way, might get people killed. The military is not for everyone. I mean, a lot of people think that, that's, that's my go-to thing if I can't get into college, if I can't do that. The military is harder to get into than going to school. I mean, technically, it's harder to get into the Army than it is to get into, let's say, Harvard or Yale. The reasons for that is you can still get into Harvard or Yale or any other really elite Ivy League type of college if you're in, let's say, a wheelchair. You can't join the military if you're in a wheelchair. If you're, 200 pounds overweight, you can still go into these amazing colleges. You can't join the military if you're overweight. You could potentially even be a drug addict and go to these colleges, and you can't do that in the military. So that's why I say it's actually harder to join the military than to go into like an amazing elite college. But some people think that like, oh, well, I guess I can always turn to the military to do things. And that's not the case because of the kind of risk factor in a combat zone in certain kind of environments. We need to make sure that we got good, legit people in the military. Do people slip through the cracks? Sure, of course. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody in the military is this awesome, amazing people. No, there are douchebags. There are people that are, gain weight, and become overweight slobs and become drug addicts and all sorts of stuff. But nonetheless, the initial process is a lot harder to get into the military compared to going to these massive schools. And I don't think that we should necessarily just drop standards to just increase numbers. But what are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section down below. What do you think about that? Do you think that, yes, we should reduce it? Do you think maybe there should be a little bit more restrictions if you don't have a high school diploma or GED? Well, I don't know. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Also, what do you think would be some good things that maybe the Army could do to try to increase the numbers? Is there something that maybe in your scenario, maybe you're thinking about the military, but if they did this, then that would increase your chances of joining the Army or joining the military or something along those lines? Let me know about that down below as well. If you're interested in the requirements for joining the Army, what the process is like for joining the Army, I got a video right here that you can check out. Check out my links down in the description box down below for affiliate links, for social media. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. I'm Christopher Chaos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. See ya.